Cool.
Great.
And I'm going to admit everyone.
Okay.
Here it goes. Hi, good evening, everyone. Happy Thursday. We're here on June 3rd. I'm Carolina Wheat, Artfare Curator, letting everyone in here. And tonight, for our Thursday night broadcast, over 50 now, I think we're like 56 or something. We got Jen Shepard. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
And as folks kind of waddle in here, I like to, they were saying, shoot the shit a little bit. And the first question is kind of a boring one, but it looks like you're in your studio. Are you?
Yep, I sure am. And I faced you against the pretty wall instead of the mess on the other side. So
the mess sometimes is really the brilliance. So
yeah, it's fun, but it's just like such a mess. I mean, I can show you guys, but it's like, it's just like stacks of paper towels. And
that's
things.
Right. It looks fairly organized.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, somewhat, but then it's like funny because I'm always like the other day when I came in here, I was just like, like I don't know what it was. I was just like, everything's got to go. It's got to go. I need shelves, more shelves. And then I come back in and I'm like, it's fine. Just relax, dude. Like, it's just a lot of stuff, you know?
Yeah. So. Well, making art takes a lot of stuff. I mean, certain types of mediums take a lot of stuff. I mean, even digital work takes a lot of hard drives, a lot of memory, and
and people like that do like photography and stuff. It's like you've got your set stuff, you've got your equipment. Yeah, there's always. But then me, it's like I work in so many mediums that I just have so many things, and sometimes I feel like a total pack rat because I'm always like, maybe I'll use this, and then it sits there for like 2 years, and it's like, okay.
A recurring theme, and so many artists practice. I think, I mean, there's certainly artists that, well, hoarding is a pretty harsh word, but keep things that, that have that potential energy. Talking about, well, one day I'm going to use it. I have some wrapping, beautiful wrapping paper from Japan from 1995, and I just found it the other day in this portfolio. And I'm like,
wow!
Oh my God, I can make collages with it, but I forgot all about it, and it's all good. But now it's kind of too precious for me to use it.
Yeah, you're like, oh my God, this has like been in here for 20 years. Like, oh, or like more. Yeah, that's
that potential energy.
Yeah,
it's really tough to throw things away. Like you've got like found paper, or this a frame that's a really nice frame. You're like, I'm gonna make work that fits in that frame.
I have one of those right now as we speak, and I'm like, this frame fits nothing. Like, this is like, I should just throw it away. Like, nothing fits this frame. But anyway, yeah.
I mean, you're in Brooklyn right now. Are you in Ridgewood?
Yeah, I'm in Brooklyn. Yeah, my studio is actually at Broadway Junction, which is a very interesting area, but it's pretty close to my house. And I actually kind of love my building. It's like, it was obviously some kind of industrial thing at some point. So I have this like weird door in my space that was like probably, I don't know what they were making in here. I mean, hopefully, it's not a super fun site, but yeah. But I think like probably half the studios in Brooklyn are. So, it's a crapshoot. But yeah, so it's this like super old, industrial space. It has a lot of character though. I love it. I think it's the biggest studio. Actually, it definitely is the biggest studio I've had in New York, which it's not like ginormous, but it's very affordable. So it's perfect.
Yeah. This is separate from your home, as you said. You were walking. So I think I visited your studio in person years ago, pre-COVID, and that was kind of like you had a really nice live work situation going. But how does it feel now that you've got this singular space that's all yours that you're able to go to? Is practice changed at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot better. And like, to be like clear, like I actually had a space outside of my home from 2013 to like 2018, or 2017, something like that. So I was actually used to having that.
Oh, right.
And then I decided to just kind of like, I went on a long residency at Wassaic. I was there for like 2 months. And this was in 2016. And then I decided like when I got back that I just wanted to live cheaper and work less. So that's why I moved into my home, you know. But the problem with that is that I am like also, you know, I paint a lot, but I'm also a sculptor and an installation artist. So just at some point, there's just not enough room. And I ended up paying for a storage space. And then it was kind of like, well, that's silly. I should just house. And so it's been really good actually. And at first I was nervous that I would just like be in here less or make less work. And while I'm obviously in here less because I don't live here, I have found that having a dedicated space, like I'm a lot more focused when I'm working. So I can come in here for a couple of hours and then I'm like, oh, I actually accomplished something. I wasn't piddling around like feeding the cat or cooking in between like dabs of paint, you know, so which that's very nice too. That has, you know, there's a time and place for that. But this has been really good for like my headspace and to be able to, you know, and also just like make a real mess and not worry, a real mess.
A real.
Yeah.
When you have some work behind you right now, and those are newer works, Jen?
Yeah, they're pretty much brand new. So this one to my left, I think I finished like maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. And then, well, maybe I finished them around the same time. Yeah, I would say actually it's maybe 2 weeks ago. They're pretty new. Yeah. So I was kind of like, it's funny because I had a solo back in the fall and I kind of felt like that was like a lot of energy that I put out. And it was like, I definitely felt kind of like, you know, afterwards, like, even though, you know, a lot of the work, you know, it wasn't like I made it all at once. Like, it wasn't like it was, but it was just, there was just something about like all of it, like coming together and like putting it out in the world. It just like felt like I gave birth or something. So then I kind of, I kind of feel like I went on maternity leave for a while and I wasn't like making a lot of stuff. But
I like the way you at least know yourself well enough to acknowledge the fact that you kind of blew your wad, right? And you got everything out. You could, you know, really focused on that show, and then you were able to rest. I hope you didn't get sick, because that's always like, it's something that just like, once the buildup is there,
oh man, no, thank God I didn't get sick. I just felt really like out of ideas for a while or something, which I feel like is pretty unusual for me, like, because I'm pretty prolific and I like to just keep working, and like I'm more of a process based, you know, so like that's how I discover things. So like instead of planning, I just work through it, you know, I work through slumps normally, but this was the first time that I had a pretty hard time doing that. But then it was kind of like, all right, you know, just relax, dude. It's it's okay. You know, I had to give myself that space a little bit. But what's funny is I still made stuff. I mean, I say like these two are brand new, but I think I still made 5 or 6 paintings in the past like 4 or 5 months. So it wasn't that bad. Like it wasn't, you know, but for me, it wasn't very much, you know.
Well, it makes sense too. And I know you were saying you're just making and you're constantly making. And you know, where do you put it all? And I know we kind of started with the storage idea, but the solo show, was this show that was at Paradise Palase, or is this?
Oh no, it was Gold Scopophilia. Yeah. No, Paradise Palase, we had actually just an online show the past, like it was for a few months. Yeah, this one was at Gold Scopophilia. It opened back in November and it actually closed in January. But yeah, so it's only been, gosh, I guess it's only been 4 months since it closed, but you know, there again, it's COVID time. Like, what is time? It feels like it was 5 years ago, you know. I don't even know.
I know, even my mother, my poor grandma, forgot my daughter's turning 14, not 13. I was like, I can't be mad at her because like the whole year passed. Like
everybody lost a year, right? Like
grandma lost a year. You know, she's in the news now, you know. Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about that solo show, because I know you as you mentioned, your sculptural installation, and you have these really fantastic graphic 2D works or paintings.
Oh yeah, sorry, you are breaking up.
Oh, I'm here now. Can you hear me?
Sorry, you were, yeah. Okay, sorry. Can you repeat that?
Yeah, well, I was saying that I wanted to get to that show that you had, because I noticed that it was sculptural installation, and you were focused on, some of these nice graphic paintings that you're making. So you're gonna put a nice combination of all of your practice in the show. And I think you have some slides, and I'd love to start asking about some of your imagery and process. Do you want to light those up?
Definitely. I will try to share my screen. Hopefully this, I hate it when it shares the wrong screen, so hopefully this is right. Yes, okay. And I'll go to, let's see, play slideshow. Oh, we gotta go to the beginning. Sorry. Here we go. All right. Yeah, so talking about that solo exhibition, I did include quite a few images from it here, because those are kind of, like I said, they're some of the more recent babies I put out in the world. So so, and I was really proud of, we had a really nice, some nice photography and nice kind of installation. I'm sorry, I'm going to try to move this, move my Zoom thing so it's not over my screen. Okay, Zoom is always a challenge. Okay. Oh, no, it did it again. Okay, sorry. All right. Anyway, so this one, so this is from my solo. It was called Please Scream Inside Your Heart. It was at Gold Scopophilia, which is in Montclair, New Jersey, curated by the wonderful Jen Robulewski, who's the owner and proprietor there. And so this is just an install shot of some of the sculptures and one of the paintings. And I have a few installed. Wait, how do I go to the next one? Oh, there we go. Okay. So here's just another install shot. Like you said, I was able to include a lot of different elements in this show. There's painting on canvas, there's a lot of work on paper, and there's a lot of sculptures. And a lot of times I tend to show the sculptures more in the context of like their own kind of like installation and their own like world. But this was a cool opportunity because Jen was really interested in a lot of the two-dimensional work. So this was a cool opportunity to have more of like a cohesive like combination of them. And I thought it was kind of nice because I think there's always a conversation between the paintings and the sculptures, and often something I paint becomes a sculpture and whatnot. So it was kind of cool to have them together.
Yeah. And so the works that we're seeing on that back wall that are actually, I don't know, it looks like magnets of sorts. Those are paper works. So it's, what do you use? Is it gouache or acrylic on paper or color pencil? What are you using?
Yeah. So I actually have more like, I have kind of details of each of them. So this one, this guy was on the first slide. This one is just, it's acrylic, and I call it acrylic gouache. It's really funny because like for a while there I was like, oh yeah, this is like some acrylic gouache hybrid, and then I kind of like went back and like I think I was talking to somebody about it, and I looked back again and I was like, I think it's just gouache. But anyway, it's something that I use. It's the Holden gouache or acrylic gouache, whatever the heck it is. So that, and then I use this water soluble spray paint quite a bit, which is really fun to play with. So this one's on canvas.
As an artist, I think use some of that water soluble on glass. They put it on like the storefronts. Is that possible? And then you can like scrape it off or something?
Maybe. I don't really know. I mean, it is acrylic, so I don't know. I guess you can paint with acrylic on glass though, but like I've never done that, so I'm not really sure. But like in terms of the reason that the fact that it's water soluble, like to me, that's important is the fact that it's not like it's archival. I'm not spray painting on paper. You know what I mean? If you spray paint it on paper, that's going to eat through the paper eventually. You know what I mean? So, and then also the other cool thing about water soluble spray paint is that you can work back into it. So that's another thing that happens. Like you may or may not be able to tell on, depending on the piece. But sometimes I work back into the spray paint. So that's why it would have a little bit of a different look than if I was just spray painting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like much more, yeah, like a wet mix. And then
Yeah.
the canvas or the paper, what is the consistency of the paper? Like it feels really smooth, like it has no tooth, or is it like
Yeah.
vellum, or what is, I mean, you would put vellum if it was vellum. I'm just like wondering what this paper.
Yeah, I mean, I just work on Stonehenge, so it's not like that fancy. But I mean, it's a nice paper. It's a nice quality paper, but it's just like a quality like multimedia paper. But yeah, it has almost no tooth, which I really prefer. And like I'm trying like more and more to like, work with canvas more, but really I love paper. And so, and that's what I love about it, is that it like, there's no tooth to it. So it doesn't disrupt, whatever medium you're working with, so this doesn't, we'll get to some in a minute. And actually that cat picture, I could skip ahead, I guess. The cat painting here it is. So here's a little bit more of a detail. But it's hard to see in this photo really, but like, these little gray areas are actually graphite. So that's another thing that I really like to work with, especially on the paper, is graphite. And like I've been moving away from that a little bit more recently, partly because I'm like working on canvas quite a bit. But it is something I really, enjoy, and it gives it this like, there's like an interesting kind of like sheen to it, and it's like a really different kind of texture. But yeah.
This one in particular is so layered, and you called it the black cat, and I had to really look hard to try to find the cat. Where a lot of your the images that you use, they're often representational, playful illustrations, whether it's trees or skulls or cats, rainbows, raindrops. Can you talk a little bit about your subject matter and how you negotiate that within the work, or
Yeah, definitely. And it seems like, so apologies, it seems like I can't really go. Oh no, it is letting me go back. Okay, anyway, excuse my technical difficulties here. So I can go back, I don't have to X out of it, but anyway, so to speak to that, it's interesting because I think like for one thing, obviously I literally just showed like 2 paintings with the cat in it, which is funny to me because like I've been painting her for a few years now, but there was a period of time where I definitely like wasn't painting anything like in my surroundings, and it was more just, I was kind of like more focused on the abstract or like the fantastical. But I kind of entered like a phase a couple of years ago where I started to, I think it was maybe around 2017, around that time that I moved my studio into my home. I actually went through, it was weird. I almost went through a COVID before COVID, because I went through this phase where it was like, I had these art sales, and then I thought that there were going to be like a lot more. So like there were some deals in the works and then whatever. So I kind of just took off, and I wasn't like working a day job for a while. And I was like, just kind of holed up in my house, like painting. And then it was like a weird period where some of those like deals kind of fell through. It was like a little bit of a dark period where I was kind of stuck in my house and I was unemployed and I was like just painting a lot. And then all the stuff around my house started to like work its way into the paintings. So that's when the cat entered, because I have a black cat and her name is Ruthie. So that's so that was and yeah, so like back to that painting I was just showing. This one was made during that time period where it was like, it was just kind of dark, and it was through winter. This time period like went, where it was like a really snowy winter, and it was just like, oh my God, like, so I think I ended up with this really dark color palette and and whatnot. But yeah, the cat came in, and then some other things started to come in. But yeah, I kind of wish I'd put these more chronologically now, but they're from the show, so I kind of had just thrown them in.
Sure.
But so yeah, back to this one though. This is very recent. This is from last year. So this is when everything is coming in now, so like, we've got the raindrops, that's something that has been there, because a lot of times like the landscapes that I create are like, they're imaginary landscapes. So it's kind of this idea of, I mean, it's like, is it outer space? Is it underwater? Like, what is it? You know, because I really have this like fascination with the idea of like kind of like other worlds and like other dimensions and things like that, you know, and like the afterlife, things like that. So it's this idea of like imagining like what would be in those spaces. And so then pieces like this are kind of weird because it's like the opposite. It's like I'm starting to paint things like in my life, but then those like fantastical elements are coming in too. So I think so that's where the drops are. I think the drops are kind of just they're pretty like pretty much like a consistent theme. But yeah, so go ahead.
Oh no, I was just agreeing. They're a consistent theme, and you're painting, you know, your surroundings and around you. And I do see and definitely understand when you're like, I'm, you know, working on these different worlds. That's so popular right now. And I know that you've been doing this for a handful of years, but even going around and seeing some painting shows lately, there's this hyper realism within just this fantastic surrealism. It's just a fantastic, I think it's called, or something, you know, and that illustrative kind of painting style has really been embedded in some of a lot of contemporary painting right now. Whereas like, I don't know if you want to go down this rabbit hole with me, but just like the idea of illustrations inside painting, sometimes folks, you know, kind of poo-poo this idea where, oh, it's too illustrative, or it feels more like graphic, for instance. And I know that you have a background in graphic design, and you're very careful about your compositions. And I just was wondering, you know, if you've been noticing this move towards this fantastical, hyper realistic, yet surrealism.
I mean, yeah, definitely. And I just think painting is always a conversation. So it's, you know, it's always going to be like that unless you're painting in a vacuum. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm looking at other artists, you know, but yeah, in terms of, you know, it's like, I hate to kind of like talk about my graphic design background, but I know it gets in there somewhere, you know? But so I guess in the sense of like, so maybe back to your question and just like to move on to another slide. I first started painting the drops, some of these other motifs started to enter as well. It was kind of like rainbows and then, you know, that kind of like night sky thing that was like in the previous slide. And all that kind of stuff started to enter like during a time when I was mostly working completely abstractly, maybe around 2016. And then it was just like an odd thing. It's like, you know, I mentioned that I had done a 2-month residency at the Wassaic Project. And like, to be honest, like that was like the first time I was like out in nature, like for an extended period of time. And for me, that's really where those elements started coming in. And in terms of like illustration, I mean, like, I don't really like, I mean, I definitely don't think of my work as illustration, but like, I mean, I could see where when it becomes really pictorial, like, you know, perhaps it could be read that way, but like, it's definitely, there's definitely something about a boiling down of the elements. Like for me, like shapes like the drops and like even the eyeballs, even though they're more painterly here. And the clouds, they're kind of like, I like the idea that they're an oversimplification of an idea of something that's not tangible, especially the clouds. Like, you know, clouds and rainbows and things are not like tangible objects, you know? So the idea of like turning them into this like sort of like object-y, but at the same time like icon-ish thing is like really interesting to me. But definitely recently the painterliness is coming back in, and I'm finding that more interesting, like to apply, you know, like in this series, for instance, it was like a series of smaller pieces I did kind of at the beginning of COVID, kind of like thinking about rain and, you know, the drops of your COVID sneezes and stuff like that. Yeah, but I definitely started thinking more about, you know, bringing that kind of a painterly hand back into it. But yeah, I mean, as you can see, I still like, I like the idea of like like the idea, like the whole, Magritte, like this is not a pipe, like this is not a raindrop. So why should I make it look like a raindrop? And why can't it be a boiled down version of a raindrop? That's just like aesthetically interesting to me. And like, so this is not a shadow. I mean, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. So.
Well, it does give your work a very signature style.
Yeah.
I find when I see your work out in the wild, and certainly online, it to your credit, it's definitely feels like, oh, this is a Jen Shepard. I
right.
think there are
well, that's good.
yeah, because you have these reoccurring, the raindrops, the drop shadow, the rainbows, both the cat now, that are all commingling both in 3-dimensional form and 2-dimensional form, and just bringing those together. I think that the most recent show you had, the works that you're creating in sculpture, can you, I really appreciate this piece in front of us too, but I just want to quickly ask, what are you making those out of? They're not ceramic, is it?
Oh, the sculptures. They're mostly, I'll skip to some sculpture. So here's a skull that I made. So these are, the material has been like sort of changing recently, but like typically I make these with like a paper mache armature, and then they're covered with epoxy clay, which is just like, yeah. So it's a very like, it's this like kind of heavy, like kind of difficult to work with, actually, like clay that hardens to like a very plasticky kind of texture. Yeah, so all of these sculptures, I believe most of these are created that way.
Even the skull though that you showed is so painterly.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, that's kind of like where I've been moving. But I mean, there's always like a push pull, because then it's like, that piece that was behind me when we started is a lot tighter than I have been working. So it kind of, I think it just goes back and forth a little bit, but yeah, with this skull in particular, I was like, oh, I just want to glob the paint on. I just want to do this like Klaus Oldenburg kind of thing, just be like, blah, 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 and just make it like really, like it is a painting. And I think like, yeah, with the sculptures, like I definitely teeter back and forth with that, where it's like this one is definitely tighter. And this is just a weird one too, this cat. I mean, I shouldn't even put, well, 2020 is the wrong date anyway. But I should put like 2017 to 2020, because like it took me so long to resolve this thing. And so it was just like, it was like, it just wasn't working. And then it kind of finally got to a place where I could live with it. And then I was just like, well, it just is part of the work. So, it needs to still be seen, but it's just like it was an awkward one. It was an awkward one where I was trying to get more painterly and it wasn't really working. And but yeah, I mean, yeah.
It's got dare I say, a feeling of like El Gato, like some of the little trinkets and things that you find in Mexico.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I feel like that's something, that's probably something, because I'm also really like, I love Day of the Dead art and stuff like that. And I probably look at it less now than I did perhaps, say like when I was younger, but it's definitely like an influence. And I'm a big horror movie fan and things like that. So it's like, I feel like influences like that, like come in, in a way. And like, sometimes, I let them in like to be more obvious. Cause even the skull, I mean, when I was making it, I was like, oh, this reminds me of making like Day of the Dead skulls. Like, cause I used to do that sometimes, like when I was a teenager. And, when I was first making the paper mache armature, I was like, oh, this is like exactly how we did it, so, yeah. And then it's also like, I've also always had this like fascination, like with the macabre, but it kind of plays into the fascination with like, the mysterious. To me, all that stuff is tied together, other dimensions, the afterlife, like, and then it's like something like a horror movie as like a way to like look at that and like sort of laugh at it, and then also like be really frightened by it, and it's all, yeah, it's all kind of in there for me, yeah. And
well, I suppose like just pushing intention when you think about the raindrops and the rainbow amongst some like really dark and leering sky or whatever, I could see your choice in, you know, kind of horror or thriller movies. It definitely comes through. The Day of the Dead is a really clear reference as well. But are you looking at, or who are you looking at in relationship to painters? Is there a couple painters right now that you particularly revere?
I mean, I think it's really interesting because I just like my Instagram feed is like just full of, I just feel like, you know, I'm surrounded by talented painters and I'm looking at their feeds and I'm looking at things that they're looking at. And I, you know, maybe it's also that thing of like, you know, that it's just like our brains are just like a constant like Instagram stream nowadays. So it's like hard to put a finger on it, but I'm looking at, off of my head. Yeah, I don't really, this is always a question. Like I need to like ahead of time, like write down 20 painters or something. I don't.
I actually the question
yeah.
of the artist, but since we were kind of going there in a little reference, I thought, well, you know, think about it. We'll come back to it.
Okay. Yeah. I am always like put on the spot with that. I'm like, well, I'm looking at everything that everyone else is. What do you mean? Like, I don't know. It's like,
don't work in a vacuum, right?
Yeah, I'm like, Rebecca Morris, Will Hutnick, Lou Fertino. Like, I don't know. Can I just like name every painter that I'm aware of right now? I'm looking at everyone like, yeah. So yeah, but I can go through and show some more slides. I don't know if I kind of skip through a few, but yeah, here's some more sculptures that were in the solo show. So this is back to that thing where I started to bring in more personal like objects. You know, and I think it's like really interesting too, because I don't think like for a while there, like I said, I was like just working so abstractly. And then even when I started to move into this like kind of like landscape realm, oh, I will say this, when I first started kind of doing more of the imaginary landscapes, I was definitely looking at like a lot of like, I was looking at Amy Lincoln, I was looking at, oh my gosh, what's her head? I will think of her name in a minute. Okay, sorry. But that was one person who did imaginary landscapes I was definitely looking at. But anyway, just to continue on that, at first it was like very much, I felt that it wasn't personal, that I was like kind of just playing with motifs, you know? And then the more that I did it, I realized like it was personal, because it was like, okay, like I'm bringing in, you know, because like I said, I have this interest in the afterlife and, you know, like mysteries of the universe kind of thing. And, you know, and some of that probably comes from the fact that I lost like a lot of my, you know, several family members and like my parents, like fairly early on in life. So it was kind of like something that was like a fascination for me or something. So when I think about those landscapes, a lot of the things, the elements I was bringing in, it was like, you know, it's like outer space and it's like underwater. And it was really weird when I had a show with Paradise Palase a couple of years ago. And I did an installation there. And the show was more about like your roots and things like that. And it was funny because I decided just to apply because my good and talented friend, Tiffany Smith was curating. And I thought, well, you know, I'll give it a go. And I thought, well, let's see if I can write an artist statement that's like related to this, or you know, write a statement that, you know, speaks something about this. And I thought, well, if I can't do it, then I won't enter. And then I started writing, and I was like, holy cow, I had no idea. But this stuff is very much like about my origins, like, because, you know, like my dad was an aerospace engineer for NASA, right? And my mother was a scuba diver. So it's like, oh, okay. And they both have passed. And so then it's like, I was like, oh my God, like I'm like channeling my parents or something, you know? And then, so then that's when I was like, so back to your thing about saying how, you know, people are like doing this hyper realist thing, but then also this fantastical thing. I think the biggest influence for me in that sense is like, it's not so much stylistic, it's more like the idea, and the idea of like, anything is possible. Do what you want, bring whatever you want into the work. If you're looking at your cat, put her in there. Like if you know, so that, I feel like that like gave me a lot of like,
agency, maybe.
Yeah, like this agency, or this like just an like a you know, the validation, or just to say like, hey, why not, you know? So I started to think about that fact of like, you know, how I was like, you know, like I said, thinking about the afterlife, thinking about these things. And then I was like, well, why not start painting the objects of the dead? So this is where this kind of stuff started to come in. So like the starfish was something of my mother's, and well, so was the sand dollar actually. And the egg is sort of unrelated. That was more of like, there's a lot of eggs in my work, and that's kind of like more personal, like for like now. But the idea of all that stuff like mingling is, yeah, I thought, you know, it's kind of, why not? It's all in there. It's all in there. It's all in my life. Like bring it in, you know?
Right. And also, I mean, you're the one that can best address those symbols and the images that you choose to exemplify within the work. I mean, you're, of course, you have the agency as we discussed it, yet it's also really compelling that, you know, that it comes from that history. And I'm curious about, well, it kind of just takes that one kind of aha moment where you're like, wait a minute, I can make whatever. I don't have to make things that are like so profoundly about the other world.
Yeah.
It's like, I remember in grad school, one of my favorite mentors would always just say like, Carolina, write what you know, write about what you know. Don't try to like do all the research and like write these elaborate, you know, fantastical science fiction stories about bioengineering when you're not a bioengineer. Like,
right.
but yeah, no, it's really nice that you had that aha moment. You're able to kind of like work through that and own the work. And I'm, of course, you opened the door about the egg, and I gotta ask, what's going on?
What's up with the egg? Yeah, the egg is just like really funny. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just like, sometimes there's, you know, questions that are off limits, but I don't know. We didn't talk about that.
No. Like, but there's a lot of times comical, and it's like, to me, it's this.
Jen, you're cutting in and out on my sound. I'm not so sure if everyone else is having problem hearing you, but might be the Wi-Fi. There you are.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry about that. We actually have FiOS here, so I don't know why. It's usually very good. But you can hear me now?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, great. Okay. Anyway, yeah, I was just talking about like the comical as it relates to like, you know, the nervous laughter that you have when you're trying to deal with like a heavy subject. You know what I mean? It's kind of like something I think is also in my work, because yeah, I'm talking about all this heavy stuff, but then you look at it and it's like a silly painting of a cat, right? And it looks silly, and it's like, oh, there's a rainbow on the ground. Why is that? You know, it's very silly. And so to me, like something like a fried egg it's hilarious, you know. I didn't put an image of it in here, but I've also created a turkey leg and like a steak, and you know, just random things, but the egg was also, it's also personal, just because it was like when it's very silly. It's when my boyfriend and I first met, we just made a lot of eggs. We were making frittatas like every weekend. So it was like, so it's just like, you know, yeah, it became a thing. But like I said, it was like, it became part of that thing of like objects of loved ones. And it's like, some people you have a keepsake that reminds you of them, and other people you just have like an egg, you know. It's like,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's move to some of these other two images.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, you're cutting out.
I know you're cutting out too. I know our connection is mediocre.
Oh boy, yeah, that stinks. Yeah.
I hear you.
Oh, you do hear me. Okay, good. So sorry, can you repeat what you just asked me?
Oh, just let's talk about this work here. And I had another question, just kind of follow up on do you feel your work is best received, or would you prefer to present your work in this kind of installation setting where you show both the 2D and the 3D together? Or do you feel that your two-dimensional works just kind of can live on their own? And
I mean, I think it just depends. I've definitely created pieces where there, is like maybe like a large painting or drawing that definitely goes with a sculpture. But I feel like I don't always get the opportunity to show things that way. So, and I guess I see things as modular, as like it could be either or, because I still think the sculptures are their own pieces. So I haven't been adverse to just showing them separately, but like ideally they would be together,
Right.
Yeah. So, and I wish I'd included more images of that specifically, but I'll go back to, sorry, I don't want to make everyone dizzy, but I'll go back to one of these. So you can see in this slide here how two of the moon rocks are, this painting is sitting on the moon rocks. Like that's, that's kind of the way, I would like to display things. But like I said, I don't think it's set in stone for me. And then on this first slide, this little wiggle worm down here, originally, I had it, on top of a painting. So I think they can kind of interact, however they need to. I think they can adapt to the space or the project, but yeah. But yeah, back to these. I think because we were talking about the eggs. So this one, just to talk through a couple of these that we kind of skipped over. Like this one was also like the bird was like, I mean, it was kind of a from, obviously I wasn't trying to make it look realistic. It was kind of a from life thing. It was from a trip to Greece where there was, like a bird statue. Yeah, something I associated with my boyfriend because, we were at his house in Greece and overlooking the mountains. So it was almost like it became this very, it becomes this very kind of sentimental painting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but this guy was like something I did at the very beginning of COVID. So it was just kind of scary, like, oh my God, like a storm's coming in and what's going to happen, and people are crying and they're sick, and the macabre, the eyeballs, but it's kind of like jokey, there again, it's like that thing of like trying to make light of something scary. We talked about the drips. And here's this guy. So, the rainbows you kind of have seen, they're in some of the paintings, but yeah, the idea of the rainbows, what's funny about those is I didn't paint them before I made sculptures of them. They started out as the idea that I wanted to make a sculpture of a rainbow, because I had this like idea of like manifesting the ethereal. So it was like this idea there again, like you can't touch or feel a rainbow. So it was like, how can I like make a physical rainbow,
Right.
Yeah. So there's actually, I only included one image of these, but there's quite a few of them. But then that's how they entered back into the painting. So there's just always this like reciprocal relationship there, so.
These I haven't seen on Artfare, but what are the price points on these? This smaller size 10 by 8 by 2.5.
Yeah, and like for this one, I would think of it as sort of larger, and like I've made larger ones, but they're not normally this big. They're normally a little smaller. So I believe this one, I had it around, I'm sorry, I probably should have looked at a price list ahead. I think this one was around 5 or 6, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then the slightly larger ones were more like 800. And then, but the little guys are like 200. And a lot of times, yeah, they're more like, 4 inches tall or so by like 2 inches wide. Yeah, and they've been like an ongoing kind of series. There've been a lot of these little guys, and there's a lot running around out in the world. And then yeah, so I've moved away from them like lately, but yeah, I think they're a fun one. When I went to Vermont Studio Center a couple of years ago, I actually ended up making like a whole bunch of them. So I think it would be fun to have like a show of just them sometime, like 100 baby rainbows.
Absolutely. And then also,
Yeah.
some large scale ones, I wonder if, you can actually make them to go outside. Have you ever thought of that?
Oh yeah, I really want to do that. And in my studio space now, I actually have a small yard that just like, it's like, it really needs some cleaning up, but I've been wanting to like start doing some larger sculptures out there. So hopefully that will happen. Yeah.
So cool. And I think another telltale of the Jen Shepard rainbow is, and it's not as if, the sole inventor is here, these ideas end up in consciousness, but the rainbow as not being spectrum, by your ability to continue making, like this really nice, almost tertiary scheme here on the right with all those blues and greens. And then, just kind of play with the palette a lot. And I wonder when you're creating these and you're playing with the palette, like what are you referencing, or what do you have in mind? Are you just you maybe looking at a bowl of fruit, or are you looking outside, or like how are you developing your palette for each one of these unique rainbows?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, because actually when these started, it was really interesting too. So back to asking about who, what artists I'm looking at too, because I'm looking at a lot of my friends who are wonderful artists, and my friend Heather Garland.
Oh yeah.
Actually, yeah, you probably know Heather. Yeah. She had, this was years ago, she had a little a show, like, well, not little, but had a show in the project space at Honey Ramka. And it was a Honey Ramka, which used to be in the Bogart building, and which was a really good gallery for a number of years. But she made, and she does this series of plates where she paints directly on like found plates, like antique plates. And she had this one that just inspired me so much, because it was like, it was just and this kind of gradation almost, and she called it Black Rainbow, and I was like, oh man, like, and then all I wanted to do was just make rainbows in like the ugliest colors possible. Yeah, and so that's what inspired this originally. And then when I got going on it, it was funny though, because I just realized I couldn't really make them ugly. They just come out pretty no matter what ridiculous color you put next to the next one. so that's what happened. So I feel like they're almost like, that side has just really become formal play. It's just like really fun to see, like, what happens when I put this color next to this color? Is it going to look awful? And like I said, it's funny to me. I feel like they almost can't. Actually, I mean, I guess it's a matter of taste, but
make one that's just like,
what's up?
It's a great challenge. You can maybe make one that's just an array of infant baby poop or something. That's
oh my god, yeah. Well, it's okay, and that's funny too, because I guess it's also that challenge of like, how do you make yourself make something ugly? Because like, you're always curating, no matter like how much you try not to, you just like are. And I love bright colors, so they always end up in there. I'm just like, no, I add this color, like.
Do you have any more slides in there, or you want to pull out of the slide so we can see you in your studios?
Oh, yeah, there are a few more slides, but I can just kind of breeze through them, and
let's check it out. We're coming in like 10 more minutes. So.
Yeah. Okay, so just a few more quick ones for fun. This one's on Artfare Magic.
Great. Yeah, this one's 4,000, I think, or is it? Or no, it was 5.
No, I think this one was less. I think it was maybe like 2. The big one was.
I'm blocking the size.
The big one, yeah, because this one is a small. Yeah.
Whoever gets I'm sure you.
Anyway, so just like a. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to ask you. This is a great image. Thank you so much for showing this installation. It gives a better idea of how you present your paintings, often off a wall. That's nice. I was going to ask, have you been approached by Exhibition A or Twyla or any of these places that do prints of work? Have you done prints of your unique works?
I actually haven't. And I used to do a lot of print making, but of course that's a whole other thing, you know. But I've been considering doing prints lately because I think it would be, yeah, it would be good. But no, I have not yet. But I can stop sharing and say hi again. So
Super. No, it's nice to see those other slides with that more installation feel, whereas the most recent show was, a combination of paintings and sculpture. The other pieces felt like you can kind of like crawl in and under and
yeah, and I didn't show a lot of that work because I haven't been doing as much lately, but then I was thinking about it and I was like, well, the reason I haven't is because of COVID. Like, okay, so I did 2 installations in 2019, but yeah, I normally do that kind of stuff. So I mean, that stuff is pretty much heroed front and center on my website, if you go to my website. But I just had thrown in a couple of images. But yeah, I like to work that way when I can. Yeah. So, but I did so much painting last year, and there again, partly because there was a period of time when I wasn't even able to come to this studio because of COVID. So,
right.
Yeah, because I mean, someone in the building had it, and it's a small building, and it was just like, okay. So I was back working in that tiny space for a while. So I just painted and painted and painted, because there's nothing else to do also, obviously.
Well, I'm glad that you were really productive because, some artists, and to their credit as well, I mean, they just didn't feel motivated, nor did they have the space to make their work, or their practice completely changed. They tried something new. I mean, just that obviously it runs a gamut of what or how people coped as
well, and I think it helps that I had the solo show set up already. It was already supposed to be happening. It was actually supposed to happen in June originally. So I was painting my butt off, and then it got moved to the fall because of COVID, because, so yeah, so I had a goal. So I guess that helped.
that does.
But, yeah.
And so, well, I'm glad you think about making a print or whatnot. It's like, I'm curious, these works on paper or the works behind you, those are canvases?
Yeah, they're both canvas. Yeah, I've been trying to work more on canvas lately, but I usually work quite a bit on paper. I mean, there's a couple more just for fun, kind of work in progress over here.
Okay.
Yeah, so I kind of just tend to, oh, that's a new one. Sorry, you can't really see, can you? But yeah, a couple new ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm always kind of doing a little of both, this little guy here is also on paper. So, and then some more sculptures happening, work in progress also. I don't know if you can see it. It's
what's the front of that?
The computer.
Yeah.
This is this weird little guy that I came up with. It's another one where it's like I made the structure for this a few years ago, and I was like gonna throw it out, and then I covered it in aqua resin, and then I started painting it, and I was like, oh, this is actually could be something cool. I mean, it's very much in progress still, but
yeah,
kind of interesting with it, hopefully to be a pair with the painting, so I do like to work that way where I'm combining them on purpose, yeah, so so I hope I didn't make everyone dizzy.
I know sometimes it's hard to move around this studio because focus does get a little bit tricky. It's just like I count to 2 or whatever, 3. You had done an art fair, didn't you? Do Untitled or something? Did you do an installation for Untitled?
No, it was not an installation. I just had a couple of paintings and Untitled a few years ago. Yeah, it was through a Pratt booth.
Yeah. It's so good they do that. I think that higher educational institutions that are, working hard to encourage people to spend the money to get the degree that they,
actually promote their
and promote their artists.
No, it was good. It was good. And it was
really good about doing that. I think SVA is a little bit too. And then other people started kind of following suit. I think CalArt's trying to follow suit.
Oh, that's good.
But it's still, it's such a big budget ask. Like,
That's
if you're an
expensive. Yeah.
administrator, like, I have this great idea. We're going to get all these incredible grad students. Just give me $15,000 so I can get a booth at Untitled.
Yeah, and ours wasn't grad students. Actually, it was alum. But yeah, it was just alum. But it was cool. It was like a curated group of alum. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a really fantastic recruiting tool. I would try. I've been trying to like to do that for so many years. And I gotta find the right dean. To just be like, great, yes, let's do it. $15,000.
Yeah, and I don't think Pratt, they never did that before, and I don't know if they're going to do it again. But they did it
once,
and I was in it.
Yeah, I have seen Pratt do it a few times.
They did it. No, that was the first year, definitely the year that I did it, because my friend,
well, for Miami or whatever, they did Untitled. They've done Pulse. Yeah. They've done I've seen school booths.
Oh, I never saw them do. I just know that the first year that we did Untitled, it was definitely the only time they had done it. But yeah.
It's good looking out for those alums too.
Yeah,
it's like bragging points.
Yeah,
for the school.
Right. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it was a good experience. So yeah.
And it's you get to present yourself at the fair, which is like adds to your CV and so on and so forth. I mean, I can sell this. I'm going to work on it. I have proposals somewhere in my Google Drive from like years ago. But I don't know if anyone, thank you so much for hanging on and through some of these Wi-Fi challenges, but folks that are listening here tonight, appreciate you. And I didn't know if anyone would like to ask any questions, please feel free to drop it in a chat and, or, we can ask yourself, whatever. Sometimes it gets a little bit mired in the weeds on that one, but I'm more than happy to, ask Jen any questions if you have them. Some folks were happy to be here, thinking your work is
okay. Oh yeah, I see. Like, there's no questions. There's just, oh, hi guys, thanks. Yeah.
Comments. It's really been great talking to you, Jen. If there's no questions or whatever, I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to add to your practice. You got anything coming up? I mean, what's on the agenda?
Right now, the only thing on the agenda is I'll be back at DNA Residency in the fall, so that's fun. But yeah, I just had a bunch of stuff end, so too bad I can't plug it, but
it's okay. I mean, that's the time you've got the work.
Yeah.
Now you're ready for your next studio visit.
Yeah.
And, get folks in there. Now we can really use the app, the Artfare app, which was one of the reasons why I was so excited about it a couple of years ago when it came out. Is basically it's a function for folks to look at the city where artists are located and see where people's studios are and ask for studio visits. Like that's besides selling art online in a marketplace, it's getting folks in the studio. And finally now I think we're gonna be able to use that function a lot more readily.
I welcome anyone that wants to reach out. Ready? Definitely. I'm at a point where I'm ready for studio visits because I just had.
You vaccinated yet?
The solar show has ended, and the my recent project with Paradice Palase also just ended like yesterday. So so anyway.
Right on. Well, for anyone that missed any portion of this broadcast / recording, it will be put up on our YouTube probably by Saturday, and next Thursday we'll be back again with another Artfare artist. And Jen, thank you so much for opening up your studio to us and sharing stories about eggs and Ruthie. And certainly, the heart warming story about your parents and your practice and how that's affected your work.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thanks everybody for coming.
Absolutely. Now, stay cool.
Bye.